When the contractor pulled up the old hallway floor, he called me and said, "Come home now, alone." I thought he had found mold or a broken pipe, or one more problem my brother had hidden from me. But under the last loose board was a metal box wrapped in my mother's scarf. Inside was a letter with my name on it, and one sentence that made my hands go cold. "Clara, if Paul sells this house, he is lying." My name is Clara Whitmore, and for most of my adult life, my family had one simple way of describing me: the daughter who left. That was what they called me at birthdays, funerals, holidays, and every dinner where my chair stayed empty because I was working 2 states away. They never said I was the daughter who wired money when the roof leaked. They never said I was the one who paid the property tax when Mom's pension came late. They never said I called every Sunday, even when Mom was too tired to speak. They just said I left. My younger brother Paul stayed in our hometown. Because of that, everyone treated him like the loyal one. He drove Mom to appointments when he remembered. He picked up prescriptions when it was convenient. He sat beside her at church and looked like the kind of son people praise in public. I never wanted to take that from him. I knew caregiving was hard. I knew distance made some things impossible. So I let people think what they wanted. Then Mom died in April. The funeral was small, gray, and quiet. Paul stood by the casket with his hand on his wife's shoulder, accepting sympathy like he had carried the whole weight alone. When people hugged me, some said, "You made it just in time." Others said, "Your mother talked about you often." That one hurt the most because I knew she had. I had every voicemail saved. I had every birthday card. I had a message from her 2 weeks before she passed, telling me not to worry about the house, because she had put everything where it needed to be. At the time, I thought she meant the linen closet. Mom was always hiding things in folded towels. 3 days after the funeral, Paul texted me a photo of a moving truck in front of the house. No greeting. No explanation. Just one sentence. "Sold the place." It was time. I stared at the screen so long the letters blurred. The house was not just a place. It was the kitchen where Mom taught me how to make cinnamon bread. It was the porch where Dad proposed to her before he passed. It was the hallway where Paul and I used to race in socks until Mom yelled that we would break our necks. It was the only piece of our family that still had walls around it. I called Paul. He didn't answer. I called again. He sent me straight to voicemail. Then came another text. "Don't start, Clara. You weren't here." That sentence did something to me. It found the guilt I had carried for years and pressed on it like a bruise. For 1 minute, I almost believed him. Maybe I had no right to be angry. Maybe being gone meant losing my voice. Maybe wiring money and calling every week did not count the same as standing in the room. But then I remembered Mom's last message. I put everything where it needs to be. There are moments when you realize silence has a price. Not because you are weak, but because other people learn to depend on it. They count on your hesitation. They count on your fear of looking cruel. They count on the fact that family makes you pause before you use words like fraud, theft, and police report. But a lie does not become cleaner because a sibling tells it. A forged paper does not become sacred because it sits inside a family folder. So I stopped calling Paul. I called a lawyer. Her name was Dana Price, and she had known my mother from the library board. When I walked into her office with shaking hands and a folder full of tax receipts, she did not comfort me first. She asked for dates. That steadied me. Dates were better than feelings. Receipts were better than accusations. Facts could stand when family tried to make you look unstable. I showed Dana every wire transfer I had made over 7 years. Property tax, insurance, plumbing repair, the furnace, the medical alert system, the grocery delivery account Paul said he had set up. My name was on most of the payments. His name was on most of the praise. Dana read through the documents and looked up slowly. "Did your mother sign a new deed before she died?" "I don't know," I said. "Did Paul have power of attorney?" "I don't know." Then we find out. By the next morning, Dana had pulled county records. The house had been transferred 2 weeks before Mom died. The buyer was a company called Vale Family Holdings. The sale price was almost half of what the house was worth. The signature on the deed was supposedly Mom's. The notary was a man named Ellis Grant, whose office address led to a mailbox inside a shipping store. Dana leaned back in her chair and said, "This moved fast." I knew what she meant. Real sales do not move like whispers. They leave trails. Inspections. Calls. Emails. Questions. But this sale looked like someone had pushed it through a narrow door before anyone noticed. The name behind Vail Family Holdings was Morgan Vail. First, he looked like a normal investor. Clean website. Friendly smile. Photos of restored homes and grateful families. But when Dana searched deeper, the pattern appeared. Morgan had bought 6 houses in 3 years from elderly owners or grieving relatives. 3 were sold below market value. 2 involved families who later claimed they had not understood the paperwork. 1 complaint had disappeared after a settlement. A cheap house can be a bargain. But a cheap house sold by a dying woman, through a notary with a mailbox office, to a buyer who had done this before. That is not luck. That is a sign. Good people stop when the signs look wrong. Greedy people call them opportunities. Dana told me not to contact Morgan yet. She wanted copies of the sale papers first. I wanted to listen. I wanted to be calm. But grief is not calm. Grief is a house key in your hand that no longer opens the door. Grief is standing across the street from your childhood home, while strangers carry out your mother's rocking chair. I drove there that afternoon. The front door was open. 2 men were carrying boxes to the porch. A woman I did not know was taking photos of the kitchen. I walked up and asked who gave them permission to be inside. One of the men said, "The owner. I'm the owner's daughter." He looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, we were hired to clear the property." Clear the property. As if Mom's life was dust. As if the blue mixing bowl she used every Christmas was clutter. As if the wall where she measured our heights with pencil marks was debris. Then Paul came out of the house. He looked tired but not surprised. That hurt more than anger would have. He knew I would come. He had rehearsed for it. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Did Mom sign that deed?" His jaw tightened. "She wanted the house handled." "That's not what I asked." He stepped closer, lowering his voice like I was embarrassing him. "You don't get to show up after everything and act like the protector. I was here. I watched her get weaker. I dealt with the nurses. I dealt with the bills." "The bills I paid?" His face changed. For years, Paul had used one sentence as armor. I was here. And it worked because people rarely ask what here really means. Sitting close to someone is not the same as caring for them. Being nearby is not the same as being honest. But families love simple stories. One child stayed. One child left. One child is good. One child is selfish. I opened my banking app and turned the screen toward him. 7 years of payments. The taxes. The insurance. The repairs. The emergency transfer when he told me Mom needed a new water heater. He looked away before I finished scrolling. "You're making this ugly," he said. "No, Paul. You made it legal." That was the first boundary I had ever spoken to him out loud. By sunset, my aunt had called me twice. My cousin sent a long message about forgiveness. Paul's wife posted a vague quote online about people who only care when money is involved. The family machine had started. I knew how it worked. First they make you doubt your memory. Then they make you defend your tone. Then they ask why you want to destroy everyone over just a house. But it was never just a house. That night, I canceled the autopay connected to Paul's account. Not Mom's medical bills. Those were done. Not the house utilities. Those were now disputed. I canceled the monthly transfer I had been sending him for care expenses. The one he said covered Mom's groceries and gas. The next morning he called 14 times. I did not answer until Dana was beside me. When I picked up, Paul shouted, "What did you do?" I said, "I stopped paying for things you refused to explain. You can't just cut me off." There it was. Not grief. Not apology. Panic. Family love should not sound like a failed transaction. Dana recorded the call legally from her office line. Paul said enough in 6 minutes to change everything. He said Mom would have signed if she understood. He said Morgan was helping us out. He said the notary did what he was supposed to do. And then because anger makes careless people honest, he said, "You have no idea how much I owed." Dana wrote that sentence down. 3 days later, my contractor called. I had hired him before the sale became public, back when Mom and I still planned to repair the hallway floor. His name was Miguel and he had done work for Mom for years. He refused to take instructions from Morgan's crew until the ownership question was clear. That alone made me want to cry. He called at 8:17 in the morning. "Clara," he said, "come home now, alone." My stomach dropped. "Is it bad?" He paused. "It's important." When I arrived, Miguel was standing in the hallway with his cap in both hands. The old floorboards were lifted near the closet. Dust hung in the sunlight. On the ground beside him was a small metal box wrapped in Mom's faded green scarf. "I didn't open the papers," he said. "I saw your name." My knees almost gave out. Inside the box was a letter, 2 envelopes, a flash drive, and a copy of a will I had never seen. The letter was written in Mom's careful hand. "Clara, if Paul sells this house, he is lying." I read that line again and again until the hallway seemed to tilt. The letter said she had discovered Paul was borrowing against her accounts. It said she loved him, but she did not trust him with the house. It said she had changed her will 18 months earlier, leaving the property to me, not because she loved him less, but because she knew I would not sell it under pressure. She wrote that Paul had asked her to sign temporary papers more than once. She refused. She feared he might try again if her health failed. Then came the sentence that broke me. "I am sorry I made you carry responsibility from far away, while others carried the image of responsibility up close." I sat on the bare subfloor and cried like a child. For years I had wanted one person in that family to say they saw me. Not praise me. Not thank me in public. Just see me. Mom had. Quietly, imperfectly, too late to say it face to face, but she had seen everything. The flash drive held scanned bank statements, notes, dates, a video of Mom sitting at the kitchen table, thinner than I wanted to remember but clear-eyed. In the video she said Paul had debts. She said no one should accept a sale of the house without speaking to me. She said if a deed appeared with her signature after March 3rd, it was not signed freely. Dana watched the video once. Then she watched it again. "This is no longer a family disagreement," she said. That sentence mattered. Because in families like mine, wrongdoing often dresses itself as sacrifice. Paul was already telling people he had done everything for Mom. He wore exhaustion like proof. He used his presence as a shield. And because caregiving is hard, people believed him. But hardship does not give you permission to steal. Stress does not create a right to forge. Debt does not turn your mother's home into your escape plan. The next week, Dana sent letters to Morgan Vale, Ellis Grant, and Paul. She filed to challenge the deed and requested an emergency order to stop any further transfer or demolition. Morgan responded first. Not with documents. With an invitation. His office was on the top floor of a glass building downtown. Everything about it was designed to make people feel small. The chairs were low. The desk was wide. The view behind him showed the whole city, as if he owned more than property. He smiled when I walked in, the same smile from his website. "Clara," he said, "I'm sorry for your loss." I sat beside Dana and said nothing. Morgan folded his hands. "Your brother represented that he had authority. We purchased in good faith." Dana placed a copy of the deed on the table. "Then you won't mind explaining why your company accepted a below-market sale from a dying woman through a notary who has no real office." Morgan's smile thinned. Paul was there too, sitting near the window, bouncing his knee. He would not look at me. Ellis Grant, the notary, had a folder on his lap and sweat on his collar. Morgan sighed, as if we were wasting his valuable time. These situations are emotional. Families disagree after death. It happens. I'm prepared to offer Ms. Whitmore a settlement to avoid stress. He slid a paper across the desk. The number was large enough to make my breath catch. For 1 second I understood how people get bought. Not because they are bad. Because they are tired. Because grief costs money. Lawyers cost money. Fighting your own family drains something deeper than a bank account. That check could have paid my debts. Could have let me walk away and sleep again. Then I thought of Mom's scarf around that metal box. I thought of the pencil marks in the hallway. I thought of Paul telling me I wasn't here while spending the money I sent. I pushed the paper back. "I'm not selling my mother twice." Paul whispered, "Clara, please." That was the first time he sounded scared. Dana asked Morgan one more question. Did you or did you not meet Evelyn Whitmore in person before the deed was notarized? Morgan looked at Ellis. Ellis looked at Paul. No one answered. The silence did more than any confession. Court took 4 months. In stories, justice happens in one clean scene, with the judge banging a gavel and everyone gasping at the perfect moment. Real justice is slower. It is copies, filings, delays, signatures, and mornings when you sit in your car outside the courthouse wondering if the truth will still matter after everyone is done twisting it. Paul's side tried everything. They said Mom was confused. Then they said she was clear. They said she wanted Paul to handle things. Then they said the house was too much for anyone to maintain. They said I abandoned her. Then Dana showed 7 years of payments. They said the sale was fair. Then an appraiser showed the price was far below market. They said the notary had verified Mom's identity. Then phone records showed Ellis was nowhere near the house that day. The judge listened without expression. Then Dana played Mom's video. The courtroom changed when Mom's voice filled it. Not dramatically. No one shouted. No one fainted. But something settled. Paul stared at the table. His wife covered her mouth. My aunt, who had told me to forgive him, began to cry. In the video, Mom said, "I love both my children. Love is not the question. Trust is." That line stayed in the room after the video ended. When Paul testified, he tried to sound wounded. He said he had been overwhelmed. He said Morgan told him everything could be handled quickly. He said Ellis assured him the paperwork was normal. He said he only wanted to pay debts before they swallowed him. The judge asked him one question. Did your mother sign the deed in front of the notary? Paul opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The judge asked again, slower. Did your mother sign the deed in front of the notary? Paul said, no. It was not loud. Did not need to be. The sale was voided. The deed was cancelled. The house returned to the estate, and under Mom's valid will, it transferred to me. Ellis Grant was referred for investigation. Morgan Vale's company lost all claim to the property and later faced review over other purchases. Paul was ordered to repay money taken from Mom's accounts, and the court record would follow him longer than his excuses. Some people in my family said I went too far. They said Paul was still my brother. They said Mom would not have wanted us divided. I used to fear that sentence. Then I realized people often use the dead to control the living. Mom had spoken for herself. She left a letter. She left proof. She left me one final instruction, not to hate Paul, but not to let him bury the truth under grief. After the ruling, I went back to the house alone. The clearing crew was gone. The porch was dusty. The hallway floor was still open where Miguel had found the box. I stood there for a long time listening to the quiet. Winning did not feel like I thought it would. I was relieved, yes. But I was also tired in a way that sleep could not fix. A court can give back a house. It can cancel a false deed. It can put the truth into public record. But it cannot give you back the version of your brother you thought existed. It cannot restore the holidays before everyone chose sides. It cannot make people apologize for believing the easier story. Justice does not heal you by itself. What it does is hand you the key. You still have to decide what to open. For weeks I did nothing. I walked through the rooms and touched things. The kitchen window. The pantry door. The little dent in the baseboard from Paul's toy truck when we were kids. I found myself grieving 2 people at once. My mother, who was gone, and my brother, who was alive but no longer safe in my heart. Then one afternoon, Miguel came by to measure the hallway. He brought his teenage daughter, Sophia, because she was learning bookkeeping for his business. She sat at Mom's kitchen table doing homework while he worked. At some point, she asked why there were so many boxes of papers stacked near the wall. I said, because people should know where their important documents are. She nodded like that made sense. That night I knew what to do. I did not sell the house. I did not turn it into a shrine either. Mom would have hated that. She believed houses should be useful. So I used the money I had saved, along with a small community grant Dana helped me apply for, and I turned the front room into a document clinic for seniors and caregivers. Once a month, lawyers volunteered there. People came with wills, deeds, medical directives, account questions, and fears they had been too embarrassed to say out loud. The first woman who came was 81. She brought a plastic grocery bag full of papers, and whispered that her nephew kept asking her to sign something. I made her tea in Mom's kitchen. Dana sat with her for an hour. When the woman left, she held her folder against her chest like it was a shield. That was when the house finally felt like mine. Not because my name was on the deed. Because fear had entered that house and left with less power than it had when it came in. Paul wrote to me once almost a year later. The letter was short. He said he was sorry. He said he had been desperate. He said Morgan made it easy. He said he missed Mom. I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. I have not forgiven him in the way people like to demand forgiveness. I do not pretend nothing happened. I do not invite him to holidays. I do not send money. I do not answer calls meant to reopen doors he broke himself. But I also do not spend my days hating him. That is the part no one tells you about boundaries. They are not always walls built from anger. Sometimes they are doors with locks, windows with curtains, lights you choose when to turn on. A boundary does not mean you stopped loving your family. It means you finally stopped abandoning yourself to keep them comfortable. Now when I stand in the hallway, the new floorboards do not creak. Miguel repaired them carefully, but he left one small brass ring near the closet, almost hidden. Pull it up, and there is a shallow space beneath the boards. Inside, I keep Mom's green scarf and a copy of her letter. Not because I need proof anymore. Because I need to remember. I need to remember that being far away did not make my love smaller. I need to remember that the loudest person in a family is not always the most loyal. I need to remember that guilt can be used like a leash, and truth can feel cruel to people who benefited from your silence. Most of all, I need to remember what Mom wrote at the end of her letter. Do not fight because you hate your brother. Fight because some things must not be stolen quietly. So if you have ever been called selfish for asking questions, if you have ever been told you were greedy for protecting what someone else tried to take, if your family tried to turn your boundaries into a crime, I hope you hear this clearly. You are not wrong for wanting the truth. You are not cruel for needing proof. And when people steal from you in the name of family, taking it back is not revenge. Sometimes it is the first honest thing anyone has done in years. Disclaimer. This video is created for the sole purpose of entertainment. All situations, characters, and stories in this video are fictional and are built entirely using artificial intelligence technology. We hope you have a relaxing time.